considering pre-wrath, we're saved by being accepted in Christ, and we're accepted in the Beloved. We've been transferred into the kingdom of the Son of His love. We've made peace through the blood of His cross. Jesus said in chapter 5 of John that we've passed out of judgment and into life. So I just really am coming to question whether somebody can become the object of God's wrath by being at the wrong place at the wrong time. What I'm looking at, I think Christians are impervious to wrath, and I think that that's addressed by Paul. There's no condemnation. He clearly says that things to come can't separate us from the love of God. And then he gets very specific. He says, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, distress, persecution, famine, nakedness, peril, or sword? As is written, for your sake we are killed all day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter." So what's happening on the outside doesn't have anything to do with an individual's state. If you look at Acts 3:21, it says that Jesus is going to sit at the Father's right hand until two different events occur. One of them is here in Acts 3:21, until the restoration of all things. It says, He may send Jesus, who was preached to you before, whom heaven must receive until time's restoration of all things, which God has spoken by the mouth of His holy prophets since the world began. So there's one, until the restoration of all things. And then in Psalm 110, it says, until Christ's enemies are put under His foot. So the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. And then 1 Corinthians 15 goes on to talk about, for He must reign till He has put all enemies under His feet, and he says the last enemy that will be destroyed is death. Now, 1 Corinthians 15 goes on there, and it links this defeat of death with the general resurrection. So, obviously, Jesus had already overcome death when this was written. So he's talking about the future victory, the resurrection of the dead. If we take these together now, we got kind of A equals C and B equals C, so A equals B. And here's what we get. The restoration of all things and the resurrection of the dead will both occur around the same time because they're both given as conditions for Jesus' return from the right hand of the Father. They both appear to be some kind of technical issues that require resolution at the time that Jesus descends. So now you take that to 1 Thessalonians 4, and some people suggest there are various raptures, but just a second. Which rapture is this? Well, what does it say? It says, for this we say by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord will by no means precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord Himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel and the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. So, at the time of this rapture, is Jesus seated at the right hand of the Father, or is He coming? Is He descending? Do we see a resurrection of the dead, indicating that final victory over death, the last enemy? So does this rapture occur at the beginning or middle of Revelation at a time of tribulation or destruction, or at the restoration of all things, that is, at the millennial reign near the end of Revelation?
Well, of course, at the end.
Yeah.
Sure.
So they're going to have to find another rapture if they're going to put it before the restoration of all things.